got Bright Light City by the Cowabunghouls. It's from their album Balboa Beach Bash. And you can find that at cowabunghouls.bandcamp.com or follow the link in the show notes over at monsterkidradio.net. And yeah, that's our website for the podcast devoted to the classic and sometimes not so classic genre cinema of yesteryear. This is the bride of Monster Kid Radio. I'm your writer, host, and producer, Garrick M. Cook, and I am thrilled to have you here this week, just like I am every week when we get together once a week to talk about classic monster movies. And this week, we're going to get our kaiju on because we're bringing Godzilla back to the show, and we're bringing my bride back to the show. Beth is coming back to the show to talk with us about Godzilla Raids Again. I don't think this has ever been discussed on this podcast. I know that we've danced around and through the Godzilla filmography over the years with Monster Kid Radio and Bride of Monster Kid Radio, but I think Godzilla Raids Again is making its first appearance here on the podcast. It's a movie that I hadn't seen in a very long time, and I'm going to talk about that with Beth when I have her here on the show to talk about it. And because I can't get enough tokusatsu action here on the show, we've got Mark Matzke's Beta Capsule review. He is here with another installment of his review of Ultraman Ace. He's going episode by episode through the entire Ultraman franchise. And I'm just going to tell you, in his message to me when he sent me his audio file, all he said was, Derek, now it's getting good. And he's right. So that's coming up later in this episode as well. Now, I know that I always say I want more feedback here on the show, and Captain Billy actually reached out to me with a suggestion. Remember when we used to do the Classic 5 game here on the show? For those of you who don't know, the Classic 5 was a card game that we used to play here on Monster Kid Radio during the previous iteration of this podcast. I had a deck of cards, and each card had a question about classic monster movies, this or that, yes or no. There was no right and wrong, though. It was just a way to get us talking about our favorite topic, classic monster movies, and giving us an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the person playing the game. Well, I haven't done the Classic 5 here on the show in a very, very long time, and Captain Billy suggested, why don't I just pull out that deck of cards, draw a random question, and pitch that as like the question of the week here on the show. So that's what we're doing, question of the week. And because it is kaiju-centric, it's all kaiju and tokusatsu here on the show, the question of the week this week is, who wins in a fight, Godzilla or Gamera? Pretty simple. I would love to hear your feedback. Email me at monsterkidradio@gmail.com, or better yet, call in and leave us a voicemail at 360-524-2484. When you call in, that voicemail has a 3-minute limit. Let's try to keep the answers to the question of the week within that 3-minute limit. Go ahead and give us a call or shoot us an email, and we'll go over the question of the week next week on the show. But that's all next week. We've got this week to get to. We got Mark Natsky's A Beta Capsule review. I got Beth chomping at the bit here to get into Godzilla Raids Again. So why don't we dive into all of that right after this.
The strangest science fiction story ever told about man's deadliest enemy, the human vapor. Never before a power so dangerous. Never before an enemy so indestructible. Nothing on earth could stop him. The human vapor, half beast, half man.
Dr. Sano had said I'd be a Superman. Instead, he had created the human vapor. Now I should be grateful to our doctor, shouldn't I? He did not do as he intended. Yet he did give me supreme power now. I can have anything I choose. Destroy anyone I care to.
No prison bars could keep him in. No door could keep him out. The human vapor slips through every crack, through every opening, to terrify, to destroy, to kill. See the human vapor transform before your eyes from human form to vapor nightmare. The human vapor brings you a haunting legacy of fear, causing panic and riot and devastation. See this weird story of a superhuman power that menaces the world. Who can kill like an inhuman monster, but who loves like a man? Here for the first time, the most dangerous experiment in terror. See the disintegration of a human being into the deadliest vapor killer. Born of woman, but recreated by an evil science into an ectoplasmic horror to stagger your imagination. The human vapor will come to life and bring you the most terrifying experience in scientific history. The human vapor. Is he man or astroman? The human vapor in living color on the giant screen. The human vapor.
Pounding across the motion picture screen comes the most terrifying monster of them all. Gamera, the Invincible. Gamera, the super monster that even the H-bomb cannot destroy. Gamera, the Invincible.
Attention everyone! Hey,
Gamera, consuming raw atomic power. Power to destroy entire cities.
Open fire!
Man's most destructive weapons have no effect on Gamera, the Invincible. The mightiest nuclear weapons ever devised are powerless against Gamera, the Invincible. Is humanity doomed? Will the world be destroyed? The United Nations is called to emergency session in a last desperate effort to save the world.
We have one plan that we think might work. We have discussed Plan Z with the Japanese authorities, and they agree it is the best of our alternative plans. Is that correct, sir?
That is so. Plan Z is hope of the world.
A cast of thousands at the mercy of the most terrifying monster that ever lived. Brian Donlevy as General Arnold.
Is beyond comprehension. He must be stopped now.
Albert Decker as the Secretary of Defense. Will Plan Z stop Gamera? Gamera, the Invincible.
Live from the Land of Light in Nebula M78, home of the mighty Ultra Heroes, it's Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review. Ultraman Ace, Episode 26, Annihilation, The Five Ultra Brothers. 200-meter alien Hipporit suddenly appears, unleashing a deadly wind upon Tokyo. Tak responds with immediate force, but is brushed aside by the powerful alien, who demands a battle with Ultraman Ace. Hokuto and Minami resolve to transform into Ace, but a mysterious voice tells them to stand down. Hipporit threatens to behead Ace before disappearing. As civilian pressure grows for Ace to be handed over to the alien, Captain Ryu pushes back, refusing to play by Hipporit's rules. Tak launches a full-scale attack, and Ace is pressed into service. He discovers the secret location from which Hipporit is projecting its clone and achieves a quick victory. However, it is indeed a trap. Ace is able to send the Ultra signal, but it may spell the doom of the five Ultra Brothers. Episode 26, which was broadcast to television sets for the first time on September 29, 1972, is a barn burner, featuring nearly non-stop action and a high-stakes cliffhanger. The sequences in which alien Hipporit lets loose with the wind and flames of hell, as he says, are quintessential tokusatsu, but best of all is the reappearance of the Ultra Brothers, hinted at from the very beginning of the episode by the sound cue of original Ultraman's transformation. Their total defeat, as one alternate title puts it, seems definitive, and the closing shots, accompanied by a mournful soundtrack, could have left younger viewers concerned, if not upset. Interestingly enough, a very similar entrapment scenario would play out in the 2006 theatrical movie Ultraman Mebius and the Ultra Brothers, a direct callback to this story arc from Ultraman Ace. For Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review, this is Mark Matzke reporting.
Beyond the stars come the most fearsome monsters in the galaxy. Only Godzilla stands in their way in Godzilla on Monster Island. Is even Godzilla strong enough to defeat the invaders? Matching unbelievable strength. Exchanging incredible death-dealing rays. Don't miss Godzilla on Monster Island. Rated G.
Don't touch it!
In spots of a great city to the last desperate refuge of millions underground, the incredible, monstrous H-Man strikes terror to every heart, disintegrates everyone it touches. It kills but can't be killed. The most incredible man you never saw. Deadly byproduct of the H-bomb blasts, dooming mankind to oblivion.
We are facing a situation which cannot be minimized. Complete extermination.
Did you start yet?
Yes.
Masada went into the sewer.
Where?
Right there.
See a great city fight back.
Commence operations.
To stop the deadliest killer the world has yet encountered. And excitement to stagger the imagination. The fantastic fire monsters raging out of the flaming bowels of hell. Mighty Gigantus crushing whole cities in its wrath. And deadly Anguirus screaming its challenge of mortal combat. The Battle of the Ages. Scenes and sights and sensations beyond anything the screen has ever shown.
This is Count Vlad, but you may recognize me by my more familiar name, Count Dracula, and I'm here to offer you a friendly warning. Derek and his guests often get excited, and occasionally this results in revealing key plot points of the movies they're discussing. In your parlance, you might call these revelations spoilers. You know how the children of the night, monster kids, can get sometimes. So consider yourself warned, and don't come begging to me to kill them for their transgressions afterward. I have more pressing issues to take care of, like that pesky Van Helsing.
So after the success of the first Godzilla film,
love it,
in Japan, one of the higher-ups at Toho, whose name I am not going to try to pronounce because I know I will get it wrong.
Sure.
Is coming back from working on Madame Butterfly in Italy.
Man, Madame Butterfly, what a beautiful movie.
The 1954 version of the film.
Yeah.
It was a co-production between Toho and some Italian studios. They shot it both in Japan and Cinecittà Studios, which is where a lot of the spaghetti westerns were shot later.
Oh, that's a cool tie-in.
But anyway, he's on his way back and he's like, Godzilla did really well.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, basically he says, quote, make another one. And so less than 6 months.
So Godzilla ni.
Yeah.
That's 2 in Japanese for those who are confused right now. You couldn't see my peace sign.
Less than 6 months after Godzilla is released.
Okay.
Godzilla Raids Again is ready to go and released. And Toho didn't really skimp too much to make this happen. I mean, they had some tricks that they used. They did some things a little obvious to us now as modern audiences.
Sure, but also we're looking for it.
Right, to fill time, to make up for the fact that they didn't have a lot of production time.
I thought a lot of it was quite cleverly done, but...
Exactly.
But I mean, 6 months, that's a faster turnaround time than even Star Wars, I believe.
Star Wars, there was 4 years between those movies.
Right, but I believe it took a year before they got the funding to start the next one.
Well, it's true. And, the film story is a little different then, too, because Star Wars played for over a year solid theatrically. I don't know how long Godzilla ran theatrically.
Well, right. But, I mean, I think you have a pretty good idea within the first few weeks with most movies if it's going to need a sequel or not. If you don't get the response in the first, say, 6 weeks, you're not making a sequel or the sequel's getting canceled, which we've seen happen before.
This is true. So at this point, they are told to make another one. They have a different director involved.
Okay.
They have a different film composer involved.
By choice or because... By choice or because that director was already committed to another project?
That I don't know.
That would be interesting to find out. Monster Kids, if any of you know or have a lead on that info, definitely drop us a voicemail or an email or something.
Yeah, I'd love to know.
Because there could be very innocent reasons.
It really could be. And Brian Clark, I'm looking at you, man. So,
hey, Brian, come on. What's the deal with the new director, new composer? I'm gonna say probably is. The other guy was working on something, just because composers not demanding quite the salaries of directors typically have to keep working all the time.
True. But that said, he did lean heavily on some of the original Ufukube score. You can still hear some of the original themes kind of woven within its score, but there's enough difference to give it its own character.
I mean, that's not all that much different than like in Star Wars, where now it's such a big property with so many different shows and, movie directions and stuff. Poor John Williams in his, 80s or 90s can't be expected to do all of them at this point.
Or maybe like the James Bond movies.
Oh, definitely that.
You
always have that little bit of continuity with the first line, and I think that's nice. But there's no problem, I think, with bringing on another composer. I just found bringing on a new director so soon after what was clearly a success felt a little weird.
I wonder if it was because people were committed to other projects and this one was kind of rushed in, which also might be why we only had one returning character at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, and if you didn't know, you might not have spotted that one.
Right. I mean, well, outside of Godzilla, although technically it's not the same Godzilla. So maybe there is really anyone returning.
Well, I always look at it like there's a clutch of eggs.
Okay.
And that like in the same way that female reproduction, you typically only have one egg released at a time to mature. Maybe it's something similar. Maybe Mommy Godzilla has evolved into an underwater only creature, and these are just the babies that she's popping up, left or right to terrorize the world. I don't know. This is a rabbit hole. Well, I don't have nearly enough cupcakes and drink me bottles to go down.
This is something I was thinking about actually while we're watching the movie, is that because this movie tells us there must have been another one, there could be more of them out there. All the other Godzilla movies after this, are they different Godzillas? Was the one Godzilla we saw in the first film just one? And there were other ones? I don't know. I mean, how many Godzillas are there out there? Well, we do get the answer to that, kind of, in that we only see one consistently after this during this particular era of Godzilla and Kaiju filmmaking, but still.
Well, I mean, you know how like elephants have a really long gestation period because they're huge and have big brains. And I feel like for all his stomping around, I feel like Godzilla has a larger than average for a lizard brain, you know? And maybe the gestation time between Godzillas is just like a decade or something. And so we got to make good use of the one we have at any given time.
So I'm curious. I was wondering, and I've been kind of holding my tongue this whole time ever since you said, let's talk about Godzilla Raids Again.
Happy Valentine's Day, everyone, by the way.
What is your reaction to there being like another Godzilla? How do you feel about their workaround to continue the story? Just considering the fact that, spoiler, Godzilla is flat out gone by the end of the first film. And I'm not talking like a Jason Voorhees, Friday the 13th kind of ending.
Vaporized.
There's nothing left.
Spontaneous combustion level of gone.
Yeah.
No, I really like the idea, especially in light of that, not in lieu of, in light of, especially in light of that, I really like the idea that there are multiple Godzilla, and I guess in my head, I think that they're all probably siblings or cousins or related. Like their family is the last remaining pack of Godzilla. I'm gonna get that to be a term. In the world, they are from the time of dinosaurs, as was discussed in this movie, as are other creatures, including one. It's not a spoiler, right? That an ankylosaurus appears. I mean, it's like 5 minutes into the movie.
Right, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about
yeah. But the scientists are talking about how the Ankylosaurus and the Godzillasaurus, if you will, lived at the same time. And so if you go along with that premise, well, I think there was probably more than one Ankylosaurus family, because that's how breeding works. Otherwise, you get that genetic degradation thing where you have the poster with the golden retrievers and suddenly they are the derpiest, most misshapen golden retrievers because cousins married, mated. Well, I have to think that the same thing goes for lizards as well, that I know there was more than one Ankylosaurus in the world when they were around because we found more than one skeleton. So there must be multiple Godzilla.
Sure.
In this universe, I always think of it as, we talk about the multiverse, and so I always think about like, how cool and lucky they live in the multiverse where they got to have Godzilla, which is cool as long as you don't live in Japan.
Yeah.
Or King City, or what was it called?
Where, the Mothra one?
the fake city in Mothra.
Yeah, new whatever it was.
New something city. Anyway, unless you're in one of those, you just get to see the cool parts of it and not really have to deal with the destruction and death. So I'm able to go along with things like that. But I do think the scientists in this movie saying another one and that they lived at the same time as the other dinosaurs, now we know this isn't just a deep sea monster who is of our time. It's a deep sea monster who is a holdover from another time, like crocodiles.
I want to...
And Nessie.
Okay. I wanted to hold on to the fact that you referred to them as Godzillasaurus, because if we ever do get to some of the later films...
Do they really call one that?
Yes.
Oh, wow, that's uncreative.
Not during this era.
Sure.
During the following era.
Wait, do they call it that in Japanese, or do they call it that in the American dub? Because that's different.
It's a subtitle thing. There's time travel involved. That's all I'm going to say.
Dinosaurs on a spaceship. Let's go.
Well, I won't go that far.
That's a Doctor Who episode.
Okay.
It's literally called Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. Spoilers, it involves dinosaurs on a spaceship.
Okay.
Yeah, so Godzilla on a spaceship. That's a bad idea.
So we had the returning Godzilla, kind of, and then Dr. Yamane, the character from the first film, who spends most of the movie when we see him. He's not in very much. He looks like he's seen some stuff. He looks like...
He was there the first time, where all these other people who were clearly old enough to have been around and yet somehow worked in government but had no clue as to what had previously gone on, and now that he's having to inform them all, I'm not real clear on. But he's seen stuff, man.
He's got this kind of shell-shocked look, which, I mean, I love the performance and I love the choice. I wish he had been more involved in the movie, because I do like that character from the first film in particular.
Oh, yeah. No, I love the scientists trained to warn people and they're just ignoring him.
This time they kind of paid attention to him, I felt like.
Well, they do know there's been Godzilla before, even if they didn't have first-hand experience. Yes, the Japanese people in this movie, I think, have one up on us Americans in that when they clearly see tragedy about to happen, they believe. They're like, oh, we should do things. We should prepare. That's amazing.
This happened in Tokyo less than 6 months ago. So I do like that. And let's talk about Anguirus real quick.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time we've seen some hot kaiju on kaiju action.
Yeah.
The first time Godzilla fights another kaiju or giant monster.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of Anguirus?
Well, I love the premise for the monster.
Okay.
Anguirus, is that how I say it?
Anguirus.
Okay. That he is basically an ankylosaur.
Yep.
Slight differences, but I think some of those may actually come out of differences in what we knew about ankylosaurs in the 1950s versus what we know about them now. There were some fun discoveries in the 70s. We know quite a bit more now. So I can't put it entirely on the creature designers, costume designers. I'm not sure where that falls. I mean, I guess it's a costume of sorts, but it's also puppetry and scenery. And anyway, I think the differences could be put down to differences in knowledge of the time.
Okay.
And a little bit, it needs to be a guy in a suit. I will say there were a few moments where you can tell it's a guy in a suit.
Sure.
More so than you do typically with Godzilla, because Godzilla's so padded out around the arms and legs and booty and stuff, and the head is definitely not where the head of the beast is. And so I think it suspends reality a little more.
Okay.
Whereas our friendly neighborhood ankylosaur, his knees don't go the way that they should if he was really a four-legged creature. And that hurts it a little bit at times when those are exposed. But I want to give the filmmakers credit, because in many, many moments during the film, they've cleverly hidden that part of the actor behind buildings or bushes or debris or Godzilla himself.
Sure.
In order to minimize that disruption. And I really appreciated that, and that they went to the effort to do that. I guess I'd say the difference, it's like the difference between the really intricate velociraptor costumes that people will wear to cons, where really the only part of the human you can see is their legs in black tights, but even that's kind of incorporated into the legs.
Sure.
It's the difference of that being Godzilla, and a nicely painted but clearly blow-up dinosaur costume that you wear to a con where, okay, that's a dude in a suit, but it doesn't mean he can't do cool stuff or still have a throwdown wrestling match with Godzilla, because he absolutely does. They try to hug it out. That just leads to more violence. I really enjoyed the battles between them.
So I wanted to comment on two things you said. So first of all, you said Anguirus looked like a dude in a suit, more obviously. I think this Godzilla does as well, because it is a slimmer, leaner, taller looking Godzilla.
Okay.
And it is a different costume.
Yeah,
it's a different suit.
It is.
But
face is quite similar.
The face is pretty similar, but the eyes are a little different. One thing that I found interesting about this movie, and it was kind of an accident, reportedly.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do when you want to shoot something on film to make it look heavy and big and massive? You undercrank, or is it overcrank? I don't know. You change the speed of the film.
Okay.
So that when it's being played back at regular speed, things seem to be moving slow.
Exploding.
But they didn't do that here.
Okay.
Reportedly, they did the exact opposite by accident. That Mariah told their cameraman, hey, do it this way. And he's like, oh, okay, the other way? Sure. And so a lot of the fighting seems very frenetic and fast.
Yeah.
And doesn't seem to have the weight behind it that I felt like it kind of needed the first time I saw it. The first time I saw this film, I thought, I don't like it. It looks like somebody having a slap fight, because it's just moving so fast and frenetic. This time around, I think because I knew it was coming, I was okay with it. But it does lead further to us believing it is a different Godzilla, moving differently, fighting differently, existing differently in our space.
Okay.
So I thought it worked this time.
I can see all that, and I'll give you that, and definitely about it being a different Godzilla. I think also, though, the spaces they're moving through, because we have both an island and we have Osaka, beautiful city that I'd love to visit someday. Osaka being, especially around that time, less of a high-rise metropolis than Tokyo, which immediately got rebuilt back up into, towers and everything. I think just the openness lent itself towards a little bit faster, more frenetic movement.
Okay.
I think if they'd done that in Tokyo, where so many of the buildings were as tall as Godzilla,
yeah,
that you really would have noticed the speed when he hits a building, because not of him hitting the building, but because of things falling from the building to the ground. Our brains are pre-programmed to understand maximum velocity. Nearly every sentient creature on Earth is, and we would know if stuff was falling too fast or too slow compared to Godzilla. But the other thing I think that this brings up is the question of kaiju on kaiju action.
Okay.
I think that kaiju are going to be more comfortable fighting other kaiju because it's more of a known entity or a known happening to them. I don't think kaiju are used to fighting humans, and they're definitely not used to fighting helicopters or warplanes or ships or.
Yeah.
It's not that they're incapable of doing so. They clearly are. Destroy a ship at some point and bring down planes in various movies. That's not the problem. It's that those things are small and buzzing around like a fly. You know how hard it is to deal with a fly in your house?
Sure.
And the more upset you are, the harder it becomes until you're literally screaming out like Godzilla trying to get that fly.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, some dude comes to your door selling Encyclopedia Britannica, and it's 2025, so why would you buy an encyclopedia? The internet, hello, and stomps into your house. It's still going to take effort to get him out of your house, but it's very easy to know where to grab and push because it's a full-size person like you. It's not like you can easily grab the fly's arms and escort him out in tiny fly handcuffs. You can't see their feet while they're flying around. I propose to you that to Godzilla and Anguirus, we are the fly. And while eventually they will swat us, they're probably going to knock quite a few things off the shelves while they're doing so. And so they are more comfortable fighting each other, which means they can do it faster. And you know me, I always look for a way to make my brain happy by making things plausible. That's how I'm doing it this time.
He does swat one out of the sky when the jet's coming down, and he just...
Hey, we all get lucky sometime.
Yeah, I loved that.
We all get lucky sometime. Or with practice, we can get more. But in general, they seem to have more trouble smoothly making contact with humans than with each other.
Sure. And now I'm going to really dork out here.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
The West End Games role-playing game version of Star Wars.
Okay.
Worked this into its rules.
Oh.
Where if you were in a starship trying to shoot a person, there were rules in place to take into consideration the scale.
Yeah.
And how much more difficult it would be to shoot something small, whereas if you were a starship shooting a Star Destroyer, there were other rules in place for the scaling up and making it easier.
It's a big target. It's easier and it can't move away as quickly or as nimbly.
So yeah, dork mode off. Who am I kidding?
Whew.
Anguirus does return in the franchise. He does come back.
For those of you who don't know, ankylosaurs are like my favorite dinosaur.
Yeah, I didn't know that while we were watching this. I don't think we've ever had the sit down, tell me about your favorite dinosaur conversation. See, for me, my favorite dinosaur is Luchasaurus, but apparently yours is Ankylosaurus. I know I said I wasn't going to dork out anymore. But,
First of all, it's Ankylosaurus, not Ankylosaurus. He's not ankly. He's not kind of like the thing next to your foot. No, but that's not a real dinosaur. So you can have it as your favorite dinosaur adjacent character.
Yeah, it's not true. Wrestling is real. And Luchasaurus is real.
I didn't say they weren't real. Clearly, he exists. He's just not a genuine dinosaur, is what I'm saying.
I dare you to tell that to
He's like a dinosaur hybrid.
Oh, okay.
So I have to say I don't think it counts. You can have him and another famous dinosaur. Another famous favorite, whatever. Most people's favorites are the famous ones. Most people don't go for the tiny, obscure dinosaurs. But anyway, getting off track. I would like to see some baby Godzilla, like real baby ones when they're little and trying to be fierce. Like when kittens try to be like, rawr, and you're like, oh, that's adorable. Like that. That's what I want from Godzilla.
Oh, we are so going to have to watch more Godzilla movies.
Baby Godzilla in the deep blue sea. I'll finish the song if 5 people send emails or voicemails after this episode. I will write you a Baby Godzilla to the tune of Baby Beluga's song.
We're going to hold you to that.
Send us those messages, folks.
So a phrase was used in this movie that I don't remember from the first time I saw this.
Okay, do you know where you're going?
Admittedly, it's been a long time since I've seen this movie.
And you said you watched it once?
I've seen it once.
Okay, well, happy to have increased your body count.
Bastard spawn of the hydrogen bomb. How is that not used in every poster?
That's magnificent. Bastard spawn of the hydrogen bomb.
Every poster, every one sheet, every lobby card, radio spot, TV commercial. This is it. I want this on a T-shirt. I want that to be...
We can do that.
We should. Oh my gosh, we totally should.
Okay, coming up very soon on the Team Death apparel shop. Bastard spawn of the, what was it?
Hydrogen bomb.
Hydrogen bomb.
I love that.
Up to 6X.
I love that so much. Anyway, so I loved that. This is something that I wish I had not waited so long to watch again because I found myself really enjoying it. And reportedly, it did really well in Japan.
I can see why. It's a fun little romp. It's a great Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon movie. It's a feel-good one. It makes you happy every time there's a kaiju fight, and really nothing in it that's so incredibly heavy that you're gonna...
It's not as heavy as the first one.
Spend, hours and hours thinking about. Yeah, not as heavy as the first one.
But it still has a story. It still had a human story about sacrifice.
And there's a love story.
Yeah, there's a love story. It still does what I think the best kaiju films do, which is tell us a good human story.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of which, though, there's a little mini human story that takes place in the middle of this, which needed to happen for Godzilla to say, Osaka, that looks like a good snack.
Yeah.
And that was the prison break. What did you think of that? Or prisoner outbreak, prisoner escape.
So to be clear, they were just moving the prisoners because they were worried that Godzilla might come and trample the prison.
Yes.
No other reason.
Correct. Evacuate Osaka.
I mean, I think that's nice. So I think it's awesome that they were evacuating them. I feel like the prisoners were maybe a little selfish to be trying to break out while their lives are being saved.
Well,
maybe they didn't tell them?
Yeah, I don't think they knew.
Oh, well, see, that's a problem right there. They should have told them. They could have earned their cooperation and not had nearly the problem. I found it weird that at one point the police are shooting at them. The prisoners? That seemed out of character to me for the whole Japanese culture and what I've seen of it. And the prisoners they were just trying to run away. They weren't like threatening the officers or anything, to be clear. So I'm not sure if I totally believe that part, but it does give us our light source.
Yeah, it did need to happen to move the story along and make sure that Osaka was in peril.
Well, something needed to happen.
Something needed to happen, and this was
a
choice. So it's a choice. I thought it was okay. I thought it was interesting that we're involving somebody or characters from that axis of the alignment chart. You know, we're using criminals to move the story along as opposed
Careful using the term axis in a movie with Japan.
Oh, wow. That's true. Too soon, right? But from that side, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but at the same time, it shows how Godzilla, or whatever he is representing morally in our cautionary tale, affects everyone in a society, not just the military or the companies dealing with the military, or even just everyday people living in their apartment.
Okay. Which to me makes the Godzilla story from the first film and this film Lovecraftian in a way.
Okay.
In that Godzilla is this otherworldly thing. It doesn't have to come from beyond the stars or, wake up from being asleep for a millennia in Relea. It could be just something so big, and speaking of scale again, we are nothing to it.
Yeah.
It doesn't recognize us as anything other than part of the environment that it is going through.
Yeah, no, it's just about, Godzilla is just there to bring balance back to things. He's a force, if you will.
I don't know if that, Lovecraftian, I don't think implies balance, but I could see that too.
But doesn't it?
Because
Lovecraftian, there always has to be a balance between life and death.
No, not necessarily. No, I mean, some iterations potentially, but I guess what I'm thinking is like the overall kind of cosmic apathy toward humanity.
Oh, yeah. No, there's no, it's not like Godzilla's coming up being like, oh, humans, right. No, he doesn't realize, he just realizes that things have gone wrong.
Right.
No, wrong. And they need to be reset. We need to rebalance the equation. Just math teacher me here, like, let's balance the equation, kids. Okay. Even if it takes a giant dinosaur. And so sometimes balancing the equation on a global scale ends up meaning that there is some destruction. I mean,
sure.
Look at World War II. We didn't rebalance that equation without causing some destruction. So
some might even argue it didn't really balance.
And some might justifiably argue it didn't even really balance it out anyway. No. But the attempt was made.
True.
Poor Godzilla, he keeps popping up and doing this, and Mothra too. But do things get balanced? Not for very long. So I think he represents sort of an alter of Mother Earth, if you will, or an agent of Mother Earth, coming up to level things out and bring Earth back to a state of stasis, if you will.
You keep touching on and dipping your cute little toe into different facets and areas that other Godzilla films do end up touching on. So I think we're going to have to continue the Kai journey through all of this.
All right, well, let's keep doing it, yeah.
Before we talk about moving to the next step, though, in this journey, I do want to say that I unfairly kind of put this movie to the side, and I don't think I should have.
All right.
I truly enjoyed it, and something you said while we were watching it made me realize that this is more like Godzilla than the original film versus some of the later films where it does get a little on the silly side.
Okay.
In that it is scary. There are some very scary moments. The scariest being footage from the first film being repurposed without sound.
That was brilliant, by the way. Oh, the movie's 5 minutes short. What do? Let's put in a 5-minute news clip.
Which is just footage from the first film, which, think about the time. It's not like somebody had just watched the original Godzilla.
Well, no, it's been months at best.
Yeah, months at best. Probably not playing the original Godzilla in the theaters anymore at this point.
Probably not.
So we put in this footage, and there's no sound with it at this point. So you're watching silent footage from the original Godzilla, all the destruction scenes, and it's terrifying.
It is. I think I said it was even creepier. You saw the people running along the road trying to get away, but it's silent, and that made it scarier somehow.
Yeah.
More terrifying, like you said, more eerie and out of place, and like, oh, something is seriously wrong here.
You know what? That's it. I love the first Godzilla. I really do, and I do think it is a scary, terrifying film. But this one, because of that, not only is it a scary ride, but you've got those lulls of creepiness that are kind of underneath everything that the first film didn't have. Not that the first film was bad in any way, shape, or form, but it didn't have anything else to relate to or rely on, whereas this one did have that to rely on and repurpose it as something creepy as opposed to just a terrifying thrill ride. So the first one's kind of like a roller coaster. This one's the haunted house experience.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it.
I really, really dug it. I think this one doesn't get a lot of appreciation these days when they think about classic Godzilla movies. I think that's unfair and unfortunate, and I really encourage people to go back in and give this one a shot. Japan loved it. It did really well at the time. I think this one gets forgotten because of where it took place in the overall chronology of Toho's kaiju output.
Okay. Well, and I think, the other thing that I really noticed, and this is even comparing it to the original, I thought the acting as an ensemble was better.
As an ensemble, yes. I think there's some really moving performances in the first film.
Absolutely, but it's by individuals.
As monologues, as moments.
Definitely, yeah.
But there's some really nice ensemble moments in this. Even when different ensembles come together, when the police officers that are chasing the prisoners commandeer the car from the two fishing pilots and they're on their way to build the thing. It was really nice. I really enjoyed that as well. I like the relationships here a lot.
I will say I think our female lead was really well played, and her best friend, if you will, or worker.
Yeah.
They were really well played, and I thought were a better representation of women.
Really?
Yeah, I really liked
Wow.
how they I liked their friendship. I liked how they related to their guys,
Well, there was more than one main, well, not really main.
And there was more than one, yeah, which is nice also.
I don't know if they would pass the Bechdel test, but...
No, but it's 1950s. So,
it was nice to see a couple of women interacting as opposed to just one woman choosing between two dudes.
Exactly. And I will say, even among the men, we have one character that's sort of the jester of the story, if you will. He's a goofy best friend, but even he is not too goofy.
Right.
Yes, he's the goofier of the two friends, or the one with the slightly more playful nature, but he still is taking his job very seriously and very protective of his woman and his friends and things like that. So where and I think you said that later Godzilla movies can have some pretty silly moments.
Yes.
At times, this felt more sincere and more true in the way that the ensemble of characters presented themselves.
Interesting. So this movie does well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Toho says, make me another?
No.
No, they don't. Because we don't see Godzilla on the big screen again until 1962. This movie came out in 1955, so we've got a 7-year gap.
Why?
Well, I don't know. I don't know why, but they didn't sit on their laurels.
Well,
We've
right.
got Mothra that comes out between now and then.
Okay.
We've got Rodan. We've got Varan the Unbelievable. We've got the Mysterians. We've got Gorath. We've got a number of other kaiju, daikaiju, and tokusatsu films, as well as non-genre pictures coming out from Toho during this time. Battle in Outer Space happens, and that's not a kaiju film, but it's one that I've always wanted to see, and I just haven't sat down to watch.
Do you think some of that could have been because, and this is knowing how Japan is about toys and stuff, do you think part of that may have been an attempt to sell toys or merchandise?
I don't know.
I know it's still earlier days on that kind of thing, but 50s and 60s, you're talking about peak factory culture in Japan and manufacturing and everything.
Well, so a couple things.
I wonder if the different movies were just a way to have, you can only have so many of the same Godzilla. Even if he's slightly different, having other monsters to play with him with would be appealing to kids.
And they did team them up. Rodan and Godzilla do hang out. Mothra and Godzilla do hang out. And you talk about the toy thing, and that makes me think about the Subaraya and Bandai relationship with Ultraman.
Okay.
It's like every year or two, there's a whole new Ultraman series. So we have a whole new...
And stage shows and costumes and pajamas and toys and video games and everything you could possibly want.
And I love them. If we had all the money in the world and a big enough room, I would pick up all of those little bins. And they're only like $5, $6, $7.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's just that there's hundreds of them.
There's just so many of them. We just, instead of crown molding, just the slight shelf around the whole top room, and it's just all Godzilla or Kaiju.
Or the Ultraman stuff,
I don't know.
And we get doubles because then we can put like Christmas ornaments on them and make Christmas ornaments out of one set. And that I have seriously considered this. Anyway, I do wonder if that's part of it.
Oh, I just want the whole tree to be Godzilla, and then with all the other kaiju hanging on him. Get some arms, just short little arms, to stick out, and then a Godzilla head for the top, and then you could have a tail coming out the bottom.
So the other thing that happened, y'all, is in 56, Godzilla King of the Monsters come out.
Okay.
And I don't know if the Americanized version of Godzilla got a lot of play over in Japan. Again, somebody else who knows a lot more about this would have to inform me or let me know. If it got played in Japan, could there have been worry that the idea of Godzilla was getting watered down or Americanized and they wanted to go with other monsters or other stories? Because Rodan is phenomenal.
I know Rodan's one of your favorites.
Rodan's my favorite Toho kaiju. I mean, flat out. And I love Varan a lot.
Okay.
A whole lot. I'm so glad that Varan just got added to the iPad kaiju game that I play. Because I get to play with Varan now, which is amazing. But I love those characters too, and I do wonder if part of it was that. That said, Toho didn't seem to have a problem with saying, sure, American studios, Americanize this one, and they did with this. Originally it was going to be called like the Volcano Monsters, because they were going to say it came out of a volcano on an island. They were going to kind of reshoot and reframe and garrison Godzilla's appearance as being on an island volcano kind of thing. But for whatever...
Which would be okay if they did that, but they didn't.
Well, for whatever reason, and there have been different stories as to why, they ended up not going that way, and they went with retitling the whole thing Gigantus, the Fire Monster, which I kind of like, but in terms of the Americanization of it, it's not nearly as good as the Perry Mason version of Godzilla.
I guess I'm not clear on the fire part.
Well, he breathes atomic breath.
But don't they all do that, kind of? Or some version of it?
I don't know.
When you told me the title, I genuinely thought we were going to see something, even without the volcano thing, because you didn't tell me that part at first. Right. I genuinely thought when you said the fire monster that he was going to be coming out of a volcano. And also because I know that Japan is a string of islands that is part of the ring of fire that goes around the Pacific Ocean. And at one point they were all volcanoes, most of which are dormant now, but not all. So I thought, oh, we're going to get a kaiju out of a volcano on another island, that's fantastic. And then, no, they just are on the island.
Yep.
So I feel like at some point, it's okay to have a working title, but that final title needs to make a little more sense.
At one point, it was believed that the rights fell through and they couldn't call it the Volcano Monsters for whatever reason. But then later on...
Well, that would have been a bad title, too. I'm like, something that happens in the movie. I don't know.
Later on, a producer came out and said, no, that's not really true at all. We just decided to change it. So I don't know what the truth is there. Gigantus the Fire Monster came out in 1959 here in the U.S. And
why not Kaiju Prison Break? I don't know. Something.
So there was a comic book series called Kaiju Max.
Okay.
Where all of the kaiju are...
in Supermax prison?
On an island. Yeah.
Oh, and that's Jurassic Park.
And they're all kind of there. It's awesome. It's a fun.
Or they're not just Jurassic Park.
It's cool.
Will people come visit them there?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, that's probably smart. I guess the Japanese have seen Jurassic Park.
But no, I really enjoyed this one. Now, when Godzilla comes back, it's in King Kong versus Godzilla.
Okay.
In 1962, which is the first time King Kong turns up on Toho property.
Those are his monkeys. It is his circus. Okay.
And it's the first time we see Godzilla in color.
Oh, nice. Although Godzilla doesn't have a ton of color on him, usually it's more like when stuff starts lighting up and he starts breathing fire and type of stuff. But
no, we do go color with like Rodan.
Right.
And obviously Mothra. Yeah.
Rodan and Mothra without color would kind of be disappointing if I'm honest.
Especially Mothra.
Well, both of them, their colors are so much important.
Rodan's, of the green reptilian, mold, but Mothra's got all those brilliant colors. So, but yeah, we do go color between now and 62. I want to ask you, and I'm going to put you on the spot, two things. First of all, what do you want to do next with your kaiju journey, with your kaiju catch-up? Do we want to go to Rodan and Varan and all of them, or do you just want to stick with Godzilla for now and go to King Kong versus Godzilla?
No, let's stay in a chronological order. Let's go to Rodan next.
Which makes me really happy to hear you say.
I know, because it's your favorite, and also because of that reason, and not too much more than a month, and we are celebrating. Ourselves and together, and so that'll be nice. I know this month's mostly planned out.
Mm-hmm. And we'll get to that here in a second. I had something else I wanted to put you on the spot.
But yeah, I'd love to watch Rodan next.
The other thing is that you told me a story, I think yesterday while we were driving around, that Godzilla is Chinese, and I would love for you to share that with the listeners here.
Okay, so this is according to our tour guide, Joe. I'm pretty sure that wasn't his real name. When I was in Shanghai, China, 10 years ago now, almost 10 and a half years ago now, and he made a big deal of telling us, Godzilla's Chinese. And we're like, what? And the funny thing about this, this guy was always telling us that everything was Chinese. It was like the dad in my big fat Greek wedding. And he was like, China's the first country in the whole world, so everything is Chinese. And here I'm going to tell you why. And we're like, how on earth, why do you think that Godzilla is Chinese? And he said, well, he's always fighting the Japanese. And when I tell you that bus erupted in laughter.
Oh.
So yeah, no, I I'm like, okay, I can't argue with that. He comes from off the coast, and
sure.
So whether he's Chinese, Japanese, American, or Swedish, I wonder how Godzilla does in Sweden.
Well, I don't know about Sweden, but there was Reptilicus and Gorgo in Europe.
I've heard of Gorgo. Yeah, that one I know.
So you had Reptilicus and Gorgo over there. And then, of course, we had our big monsters here, the deadly mantis and tarantula and all them. But I don't know what influenced what at that point.
Yeah, they feel more just like radioactive and less fantastical somehow.
And then you've got Pulgasori from Korea.
Nice.
Which is a whole thing. That's the one where the dictator kidnapped the filmmaker and made him make movies.
Right.
Yeah, I've never seen that. I keep meaning to watch it.
Okay, well, we'll add it to the list. We'll have to see where it falls in chronologically.
Yeah, true. All right, so Rodan will be sometime next month. Stay tuned for that. And
thank you for joining us as we continue our Godzilla timeline journey.
Beth did promise that she would write and perform a Baby Godzilla song.
Yep.
Get some feedback.
5. I want 5 feedbacks, 5 different monster kids. Let us hear from you.
And I'm going to leave it up to you what kind of feedback it is. If it's feedback on the show, this episode, any previous episode of Bride of Monster Kid Radio or Monster Kid Radio, or even if you're answering the question of the week. I don't think I've shared this with you, but
what's the question of the week?
So Captain Billy recommended that I dust off the old Classic 5 deck and start asking those questions at the top of the show, asking listeners to call in their responses to the question of the week. Not all 5, but pulling a question out of the
right,
and providing that. And really, because this was Kaiju themed episodes, because this is a Kaiju themed episode, I went with one of the Kaiju questions, which is who wins in a fight? Godzilla?
Oh, I love those who wins in a fights.
Godzilla or Gamera?
Oh.
Outside of...
Gamera is neat.
And he's full of meat.
Yeah.
Outside of the Kaiju game that I play on my iPad, which, by the way, if you play, let me know. We can be buddies on there and whatever. But outside of that, and then maybe some fan projects here and there, Gamera and Godzilla have never met because they're 2 different studios.
Right.
There have been allusions to Gamera, references made in various Kaiju properties, but they've never officially met.
So we need a Kaiju crossover as well.
I would love to see that. And that actually begs another question then. If we're going to do a Kaiju step by step, do we need to include the other studios? Because Gamera's in there. There's the X from outer space.
I'm not sure. What if the listeners told us what they thought about it? And in case talk good, you can also email us and we will read your comments aloud, or I will. Unless Derek's got his talking back in line now. But yeah, we'll take feedback, voicemail, email, snail mail. Maybe don't write your questions on lunch meat and submit it. We're vegetarians, but other than that,
okay. Because you said that, I'm not giving out our mailing address because that horrifies me. Snail mail's off the table, but smoke signals, telepathy, telerocitor, email monsterkidradio@gmail.com or voicemail at 360-524-2484. That's on the website.
No smoke signals if you're in California.
Beth, thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.
That brings us to the end of the show this week. Thank you for being here. Thanks for being part of Bride of Monster Kid Radio. Just by listening to the show, you are part of the community. But to become a more active part of the community, I need you to get involved with our various social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, Reddit, Discord, and Patreon. We did launch the House of Monster Kid Radio over on Patreon. If you're a paying member, you're going to get bonus content. But we do have a nearly half-hour-long video that's available to everybody over at patreon.com/monsterkidradio to kind of let you know about what's going on, well, with the house and inside the house of Monster Kid Radio. Me use words good. Very good. Anyway, check that out when you're done listening to this show. If you have any comments or feedback for the show, I know we've mentioned it a few times. I'm going to mention it again, monsterkidradio@gmail.com, or our voicemail line, which is 360-524-2484. Please go check us out on our website at monsterkidradio.net to keep up with everything we've got going on. over there and here and, well, everywhere. And if you want to help spread the word, the more Monster Kids, the better. Just saying. What's coming up next week on the show? Well, Beth is going to be back because we've got another movie that I've never talked about here on the show from 1958. It's The Hideous Sun Demon.
A man who loved with fierce, demanding passion. A monster who ran wild in a reign of terror that spread murder in his trail. The thing that went wrong in the secret atomic laboratory afflicted him with the most hideous curse ever visited on man, forcing him to cower in the darkness like a hunted animal. For one touch of the sun's bright rays transformed him into the reptilian Jekyll and Hyde monstrosity who couldn't control his lust to kill.
I really like this one. I love the monster design in this. It is so freaking cool. I hope Beth likes it too. She's never seen it before, and I've been trying real hard to choose just the right movies to show her from the classic monster movie and not so classic monster movie Over filmography, collection, whatever, library, you know what I mean. I can't wait to hear what she thinks about this one. So that'll be here next week. Make sure you come back for that in 7 days. Bride of Monster Kid Radio is a Team Death production. All original content of Bride of Monster Kid Radio is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 Unported license. You can learn more about Team Death, our other projects like Death Designs, Mail Order Zombie, the Team Death YouTube channel, and more at www.teamdeath.com. Remember, death is spelled D-E-T-H. All previous episodes of this podcast, as well as the original Monster Kid Radio podcast, are available at www.monsterkidradio.net. Please rate and review Bride of Monster Kid Radio wherever you download your favorite podcasts. Bright Light City is copyright 2024 Cowabunghouls. It's on their album Balboa Beach Bash. You can find them at cowabunghouls.bandcamp.com. Check it out and let them know that you heard about them here on the Bride of Monster Kid Radio. My name's Derek M. Cook. We'll be back next week with The Hideous Sun Demon and more Beth. Ciao.